colleagues, I'm sure, that will join us during the meeting. For example, Charles Goerens is just arriving. So thank you very much. Thank you all to attend this meeting. Let me give you a few information on how the meeting is organized and what the purpose is of this meeting. It is a hybrid debate, so we are here discussing among us, but we are also followed online on the platform. If you agree, we will record this meeting, because the idea is also to give visibility to the members of Spinelli Group and to distribute on the social networks bits and pieces of your intervention of the debate, because the idea is to use this meeting to promote and communicate on the treaty revision project. So, I mean, beyond the fact that we are 20, 15 or 30 years present in this room, the idea is to communicate out there. We are working, of course, as usual, together as Spinelli Group with the Union of European Federalists, and I want to thank both the team of the Spinelli Group and the Secretariat of the UEF, who are helping us. And of course, you know the rules online. If members who are online are following us after the first introduction, they can raise their hand if they want to intervene. We have the presence confirmed of 4 of the rapporteur of the treaty revision, but Guy is already here, and Helmut. So I would say that we start with Guy, and then we give the floor to Helmut, waiting for Gabi Bishop and Daniel Freund, who are supposed also to join us. I suggest that we do an introduction with your presentation of the reason and what we propose at treaty revision, and then we open a debate both in the room and online. So please, Guy, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we have made this report with the different pro-European groups, because finally there was one group who was present in the preparatory work, but we didn't sign the final result. That's the ECR, but the other pro-European groups have agreed their rapporteur on a report that contains in total 120 pages. So that's not a small report to adapt the treaties in the light of 2 main events. One is the conclusions of the Conference on the Future of Europe we organized with the different institutions. And what we wanted to do is to translate these conclusions into a new framework for the working of the Union, in a new treaty. And secondly, in the light of the upcoming enlargement, where we all know that the negotiations will officially be opened by the end of the year with a number of potential member states, including Ukraine. And so it's obvious, it's clear for me and for the rapporteurs who have made this report that an enlargement will happen, and that it's the moment also to do a reform, because it's impossible. So that is now recognized more or less, I think, by everybody. It's impossible to govern the union, a union with 35, 36 member states in the same way as we do it now, even because already now we are seeing not only the limits but the complete blocking of the union. And the last example is, I think, the most obvious one, the most critical one. That is what happens yesterday and today. That is that apparently the Commission is preparing for Hungary to deblock 30 billion of frozen assets, so that they can, Hungary can say yes to deblock 500 million of EPF money, European Peace Facility money. That's what we are talking about. So the 8th tranche of the EPF can only be deblocked when the Commission, and we all say, yeah, okay, this frozen funding there of 30 billion, let it go. It's clear that, certainly I am not talking about unanimity, that in the core of this whole exercise is, can you continue with unanimity in all these fields also, and mainly in foreign and defense policy, if you in an enlarged union of 35 or 36? And the answer is no. Every day there is proof of that. So can you imagine that we will give to Fico, Vučić, Orban this type of union in an enlarged union, where everything will every time block, and not because on one file, no, on different files, because more and more what we see is using the veto right, not directly in that file, but like in a billiard. You say that, billiard? You know what billiard is? Yeah, okay. So to tackle another file, say, yeah, I don't give my green light here if you don't make life easier for us in another file. That is what is happening, and that is happening nearly every day with devastating consequences. So for Ukraine, we cannot liberate a tranche of money of the EPF. We cannot make a 12 sanction package against Russia for the same reason. And that's only with 27. Imagine what it will be with 33, 35, 36, with the number of member states. So I think generally the idea we have to review, we have to strengthen subsidiarity, we have to strengthen the rule of law, we have to make decision-making more easier by skipping unanimity and changing qualified majority, because you can never use the passerelle if you don't change qualified majority. And that's the core of the proposal. The core of the proposal is we skip everywhere unanimity, and the counterpart is that small and medium-sized member states will have a strengthened position in the new qualified majority. And that's also the reason why passerelle will not work today, because if you use passerelle today, you fall in a qualified majority voting is not favorable for small and medium-sized member states. So therefore, it's a combined operation that you need to do, combined reform of both elements. And then in top of that, changing also a number of competences. Health. It's obvious that health needs to be a shared competence. It's obvious that we need to change a number of other competences in the union in the light of what we are seeing today. Now, something, positive and also a little bit. In total, there have been more than 460 amendments put on the report. And we have to go into compromise amendments in the coming 2 weeks, so that we can come to a vote in let's foreseen since the 12th, I think, 19th, sorry, the 19th of October. So tricky things, because a number of these amendments want to come back to unanimity. Yeah? So undo the fundamental, direction or of the report. So coming back to this to a number of old styles ideas, and coming back to unanimity means strengthening intergovernmental policies in the union, and because that's then the only way to do a policy is to do it intergovernmentally outside the treaties, in parallel with the treaties, without parliamentary control and so on. Positive thing is that in the meanwhile, you have all seen a French-German paper, who in fact, the philosophy behind that paper is the same as the philosophy. All the proposals are not the same. It would be a little bit crazy that Parliament rapporteurs have exactly the same opinion as these, but the approach is the same. Yeah. The approach is exactly the same. And what is very encouraging is that the two big member states in that paper are ready to open the qualified majority voting as a counterpart for to skip unanimity. And that is, it's not the same proposal. Our proposal is 2/3 of the member states, representing 50% of the population, what is, in my opinion, the most logic thing. They propose something different. But the fact that they want to open the discussion about that, that's critical. Because if you don't open the discussion about that, you will never get rid of unanimity in a number of issues. So that's a very, there are other things in the paper. It's a very, with different options, so it's not the only option. But the question that the reasoning behind that paper goes exactly in the same direction. So what is now the next step, first of all? Yeah, hopefully we can have an adoption. And so the Spinelli Group needs to play a big role in every group in that, to back the report as much as possible without as less as changes as possible. Let's not go back, because if somebody wants to come back to unanimity in one area, then another want to come back to unanimity in another area. And before we know it, taxation is also against under unanimity and health, and then and so on and so on. And you know how it works. So you start with one element, and before you know, you build again up the unanimity wall like it is today. So the first, I think, priority for us is, can we go through AFCO and plenary as consequent as possible, so with not undoing the logic that is in the proposal, that is in the same logic as in the German French paper. By the way, for example, in the German French paper, very interesting on defense issue, they want to get rid of unanimity. They don't want the ordinary legislative procedure there. But what we don't propose the ordinary legislative procedure. So there is no discussion to do that. So to say that both are, so that's the first thing to do. And then the second thing to do is convince the Spanish presidency or the Belgian presidency. I got already first meetings with the Belgian government on this, and the Belgian Minister of Foreign Affairs, as to say, before you go to the vote, because we have elections in May of next year, you can do one positive thing for you and mankind, that is putting the request of an Article 48 convention on the table of the Council. If we vote in November, maybe it's a very short time to put it on the agenda of December of the Spanish presidency, but at least it could be put on the agenda of the Belgian presidency. So that's then the second thing.
Thank you very much, Guy. I think that if there is a purpose for this group, the Spinelli Group, now we got it. It is time to be very active as members of Spinelli Group, because we are at the core of our business here. And I think that Guy is absolutely right that each of us must defend the work of the rapporteurs in its his respective group. I also think that if they give a date on reunification of the continent, we should say 12 months before there must be the treaty revision. So if it is 2030, our date is 2029. I mean, we must be very clear that to enlarge, we must reform. And I also think that would be excellent, I'm sure that we all agree, but I would like to hear your views, to push on the Council to decide now for a treaty revision to be held after the European elections, because we have to push all the European political families to take position on this issue in the European election. And if the European Council decides now to launch a treaty revision process, for example, in January 2025, we could put this issue of the European Union reform and the continental unification at the center of our proposal during the European election. So I think that also this is something on which we have to fight for. Helmut, please, you got the floor.
Thank you, Chair of our Spinelli Group, and I want to come in with maybe some 2-3 remarks to Guy, because Guy described very well the purpose, the way of how we have worked, what was the approach to this report, and to draw our lessons from the conference on the future of Europe, as well as looking into the reality where we are today and why we need a treaty change in certain areas where we are feeling that this Lisbon Treaty is not anymore enough framing the responsibilities of policy making by the member states as well as by the Parliament, the Commission and the Council in the EU understanding. But I want to maybe to give some points why I was so actively involved in the co-working in this report, because I understand our work, and I think that would be also the task for the Spinelli Group, that in a certain way it is an operation on the open heart. So we have to change our structures, etc., to be able to answer expectations from citizens. What has been the main, I would say, conclusion from the conference on the future of Europe, and until today, we have not yet delivered as institutions. That's the question how we can strengthen, how we can develop European democracy, or defending and further developing European democracy under the participation of citizens. And I think that is the main task, also linked to the question where we have to change the decision-making in the institutional understanding of the European Union, but of course also to look into the reality where we need, in the political understanding, a further enlargement of solving the problems at the European Union level. So if, for example, the citizens have recommended as one of the recommendations, learning from the COVID-19 pandemic, it was a health union, and it was a question of education, where they expect that we have a more European-wide, a more EU-wide backed approach to solve these problems in the interest of the citizens. And when we have looked to the details, where we have to come to a new decision-making, as Guy has just described, where we are leaving the animals decision-making in the vote, where we have to introduce no ideas to come to a solution of the problem, where we have a blocking understanding, as it isn't just now in the treaties embedded. So I think that is very clear, and of course it is also for us very important, the rule of law, subsidiarity, and enlarged readiness to decide together in solidarity European issues. And I think this is, from my point of view, the main issue. The difference between our report and this German-French or French-German paper, I see, they have just tried from the point of view of governments to find a solution which is logic, without the participation of the parliaments in these countries. That was a round of specialists who are dealing in normal way how it is. And I think the richness of our approaches that we discussed really deeply with knowing what has been the recommendation from the citizens, this more, parliamentarian, basis-based approach to change where we see the necessity to change. So that is the big difference. And second difference is that they are looking into the ability to keep the existing structures to solve the enlargement issue, which is not coming from the question how we have to answer to the expectations for daily problems of the citizens. So when, for example, what will Ukrainian, Moldovan, Serbian, and other citizens say for the functioning of the European Union if it is not functioning in the interest of their sharing their realities in the daily lives? So that, I think, is the huge difference also in the enlargement approach. We should not look only from how we can organize a governance alone. No, we have to combine the governance structure, the institutional structure, with the content, with the problems of the politics. And probably everybody knows, who has read the paper, that there are, of course, also difference between the co-rapporteurs on the one or the other issue. But we try to find a compromise which enables a huge majority in the committee and in the plenary to deliver this report, to be able to press the council to go to the convention. And then all the problems will be discussed from scratch up. I'm convinced. So the convention will start, but we give a certain guideline, a certain recommendation how to introduce, and I hope, and I can only hope, that the council is understanding this request from the parliament. And therefore, I would say also the second big task for Spinelli Group is, together with European movement, etc., with trade unions, with the Committee of Regions, with the European Economic and Social Committee, to unleash the debate, really to say in their structures, in our structures, here we want really to have an answer from the council, and here we want to have an answer from all three institutions, opening the way and changing the treaties in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Helmut. I got Sirpa and then Daniel.
Thank you, and thank you for organizing this discussion. I would have a couple of questions I would like to key, and of course the others if you wish to comment. One of them is that, okay, how do you sell it or how do you force it to those member states that try to use the veto in the treaty process? And we all remember the painful process of the Lisbon Treaty, if you think what we started with, and then the national processes are very unstable, and I would say that they are even more unstable at the moment than what they've been on those days, with the rise of far right and populism. So how to tackle this? And then the third, and it sort of links to this one, is how do we gain the support of the public? And I think that we as parliamentarians and the EU and the Parliament could do a lot there, sort of to support this process, to go much further than what the Future of the Europe process was doing. And then the last is, and this is the serious discussion, and of course I'm all for it, that we need to go there and we need to deepen and streamline our decision making. But then again, as option 2, the fallback position is this two-rail Europe. So what about of creating the euro area and the rapprochement there? Sort of that the euro, as you know, would do all these tricks. And I haven't been, as you might remember, not so interested about the euro area budget, because why to make double bureaucracy and so forth. But then again, it might in this case sort of a tactically benefit, because then you would get extra, in quotes, perks when you join the club. And to join the club, you have to pay the price, and that would be much tougher rules and common decision making in different parts. Well, these are my questions, and I just don't want to add them very much, but I've been wondering quite a lot what Ursula von der Leyen said on the State of the Union speech, that okay, we've enlarged and then changed the treaty, so blah, blah, blah. How that really would work in practice if we enlarge first and then just say, okay, this doesn't work. Yeah, so, but she's a clever person, so I can't sort of follow her logic on this place.
Thank you, Sirpa. So as there was question intervention, I suggest that I give the floor to Damian, and then we continue, and then we give the answer at the end of the debate. Damian, please.
Yes. So the first comment, I think, on Guy, we just discussed it a bit a second ago. I think there's this amendment by Bütikofer signed by Niklas Ninas in the AFCO committee on defense unanimity. It comes from the idea that no people should be forced to fight if their governments don't agree. But I think we can get over this, and we will be able to hold the line in the AFCO committee, hopefully with the current wording. But just to explain a bit the context, the second point is on this, like the question of reform and enlargement. I wouldn't follow this whole enlargement narrative too much because that's going to come more automatically. I mean, the election of Fico also shows that we need to reform now to not fall apart. And we have, as federalists, always said this. And I think it's important to understand, this Orban thing today with the MFF and the rule of law conditionality mechanism. I mean, we should stand strong in saying we need to reform now, because otherwise we see this union being seriously threatened to be even active for the next 5 years. Yeah? So I think that's a crucial point in terms of timing. I fully agree. Pressure on the Spanish, pressure on the Belgians before the elections. I also have to say that while I care very much about the details of the treaty changes, to be honest, the most crucial part is that the overall ambition level is very high in what the co-rapporteurs did. So thanks a lot for that. And then we get a strong support in plenary for this report. That's what matters, because this will trigger the discussions that will be big and grand afterwards, and where the ambition level is important. But let's get this through with a strong majority in AFCO. And if we can somehow make sure that there's a strong majority in plenary for this as well, I think this will be the most important part, the amount of numbers of votes, if we can get the pro-European groups behind it. I also want to say that I think symbolism matters. So I tabled some amendments which are more of symbolic nature. For example, let me see what I wrote. United Federation of Europe in the treaties. I mean, this is something where we could also, as federalists, try to just be a bit more ambitious also in the symbolism that we want to bring forward. Obviously not if it threatens the majorities that I've just been talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is clear that when von der Leyen say a treaty revision, if and where necessary, the answer is it is necessary. Where, in many parts, when, now. I would say that in communication terms, this should be our communication line on the treaty revision, but then Guy will answer. I go Charles and then Dimitrios.
Just a rather general remark. Of course, I hope that we will get a huge majority for our report. But nevertheless, I would like to say, beyond our debate, that last week or some 8 or 10 days ago, we had a hearing at AFCO level, and one of the experts intervening on democracy, how to improve democracy, said it's not useful to make enlargement and better decision-making process a theme of the next campaign. I was really surprised, huh? Because for me, it's a central point. We must tell the public opinion that we cannot have, at the end of the day, 3 parliaments. Huh? Because if you have 751 members, MEPs, 35 commissioners and 35 members of the council, then you have the size of 3 parliaments. The parliament in my country has 60 members. When they are all present at the debate, that cannot function. And I know that will be a discussion between everything and nothing. That cannot be the case. What I would like to suggest is that we should agree on the following. Let's say to all the members, member candidates, candidate for the European Union, you can get everything once we have a real decision-making process that works. As long as we don't have this decision-making process, we should apply the principle everything but institutions. Everything but institutions. You can, as new member, become part of the internal market. You can be a member of the Schengen space, but you cannot be at the heart of the decision-making process as long as we don't have the rules working well. That's, in my view, a message we should provide to the public opinion in the next electoral campaign.
Thank you, Charles. Dimitrios, and welcome, Daniel.
I will be brief because I fully agree with the presentation. I think that priority one is to achieve the largest possible political support in the plenary. Priority two is to put that in the public agenda in the coming weeks and months, going to the next European elections. And priority three is to start from now to try to find allies in the level of the commissioners, in the level of some member states, in the level of the coming of the member states who will continue chairing the council. And a lot of pressure to von der Leyen and to Charles Michel to clarify their position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Daniel, you want to jump in the debate? Of course you can.
I'm very sorry that I was late, but there's the debate in the plenary that I got speaking time for. I think the work that we have done together so far is really quite good. I think that we have managed to find broad agreement on so many points. I'm not sure everyone expected that when we started discussing. So I think this is really good. Now we need to get this over the line, and then the actual work only starts, right? We need to somehow get that majority in the council to open the debate. And I think the one debate we have to, or the one counter argument we really have to overcome is this whole now is not the right moment to talk about fundamental change. And for me, it's a bit the question, when is that ever the right moment? When was the last time that for 3-4 years in Europe, nothing was happening, no crisis, nothing else to do than to have that debate? And I would say quite the opposite. It's, we go from crisis to crisis because the union doesn't have the competences, doesn't have the powers, doesn't have the voting mechanisms that would enable it to give the answers that Europeans want from the union. So I think that's a debate that we need to have. The stronger the mandate in the parliament is, I think the more resounding our call for this debate will be. So I very much hope that that's what we can manage over the coming weeks until we vote on this in plenary.
Thank you, Daniel. In the council and for diplomats, it's never the right moment to reform the treaty. Since in my experience, I never heard the once moment where before a treaty revision in the council were saying we need to revise. Never. So, I fully agree with you. So it is certainly the right time. I don't know if those who are following online wants to ask questions. You got 5 minutes, and then I give the floor to Guy for the answers. No? No. So Guy, you have the floor.
I don't think it's necessary to react to all the remarks. I agree with most of the remarks that have been made. The idea is that if the Parliament votes and this report goes to the Council, that we also indicate that for us, a decision by Council that's by simple majority, to do a convention based on Article 48, don't need to start immediately. It needs to be prepared immediately, but not start immediately. Because in the meanwhile, what you have elections in May. You have a new commission immediately afterwards. So it seems to me logic that we prepare, but that the start is only afterwards when the new institutions, I would say the new composition, political composition is in place. And if Parliament wants then to change its position in this report, they will change their position in this report, so that doesn't affect. So I think that's important, because if we can say to the Council, look, if you take the decision now to say yes to the request of Parliament and to prepare it in the coming year, it will only start when? In January 2025. And I think in politics that means something, because in politics I have seen many times then what you ask to a politician, do you agree? And you say, yeah, but it's only for within 1 year. Well, maybe it goes easier than to agree with immediate effect, you know. That's a little bit, yeah, but for the future. And it's easier to take a decision like that when it only starts later on. So one way or the other in a debate or in the resolution, we need to indicate that our idea is that there is a good preparation of all this based on the new political reality in Parliament and in Commission and so on and so on, so that they are not afraid that tomorrow they are confronted with a convention. Secondly, we have also to indicate a convention is a way to prepare it. So it can also, it's not that because there is a convention that there is a treaty change. That's not an automatic consequence of a convention. That can go in different direction. Even when my feeling is also when you read the German-French paper that they understand for the first time the full necessity to change the treaty. What was not the case in the past. They have finally understood, but I think it was obvious already for a lot of years that if you don't change the way of deciding in council, you cannot tackle and not use the passerelle. The two are linked to each other, and the one blocks the other. And I think that was finally our report recognized that, and in the contacts we got also with, because I got a number of contacts also with the people in the French-German working group. They understood it also directly. That is the key of. Then on the last point that I want to raise is, what convention is starting, and we are blocked by one or other member state refusing.
I can't imagine who that could be.
I know it can be Fusic, it can, because there are more than it can be Fico, it can be Orban, it can be
several candidates.
There are several candidates
For the prize.
So I ask myself if our super qualified majority is
enough.
is enough. No, I think so. The super qualified majority. The other way, the consensus -4 is maybe not so. Is maybe already on the a key point, a key problem at a certain moment. But with all these people in the council. But I think that the reality will be as follows: if there is a convention, and they agree in the coming years to change the treaty, and there are 2 or 3 countries say, we cannot accept it, and we block it. This will create the necessity to do a treaty. A treaty with those who agree. And it will, all this will continue to exist, but that's the way to do it. And I'm pretty sure that the 2 or 3 who will have difficulties will at the end say yes. That's exactly what happened in 1785 and 1786 in the United States of America, before it was the United States of America. And we have to be ready about that. There is also nothing wrong with it. At the moment, we failed with the European Constitution in 1954. It was not the end of the European integration. We took the Treaty of Rome. I like more the first one, but okay, we did the second one. It's not the end of the story. We will need to make a treaty outside the treaty, and really everything what it needs, exactly what we have today. So that will be, in my opinion, at a certain moment, the point to discuss and a way to go forward. So, but we have not to be afraid of that, saying, "Oh, we will not start this whole debate because there will be at the end one or other asshole who will block the thing." That is not that's not a way to do it. So I finish because I.
Yeah, please.
I think didn't Bavaria not vote in favor of the Grundgesetz, and Quebec didn't vote in favor of their, I think, reformed constitution neither. So I mean, we're just used to this fact that some people vote against, but then bind themselves to it, and we give them funny names like Free State of Bavaria or something like this, so we can give them the Free State of whatever name.
So you're saying if we want to avoid that they then bother us for decades after, we should rather not keep them in?
No, I would just say, like, give them the chance to object to something as long as they write the paper, sign the paper in the end. I don't mind too much.
Thank you. I think that's it. We respected the timeline we gave ourselves. We finished 6 minutes earlier. The message is let's be very active for a strong vote in support of the reform in the Constitutional Affairs Committee. Let's mobilize ourselves in the respective groups, because in each political groups there will be someone who will have raised his finger, this point I don't like it, that point I don't like it. Let's defend the package as a whole as Spinelli members, and certainly be assured that we will be very active also in the communication strategy outside with the European Union Federalists, with the European movement, with all the NGO and associations which participate in the Conference of the Future of Union. And they are waiting for us to deliver on that, and also of some of the most active citizens who are still active, and that will be our best allies in promoting our projects. Thank you very much, and have a nice session.